Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our special holiday program today, presented to you by me, Lily Browning, and also Frank Galdo. We are both Florida Friendly Landscaping Program Coordinators. I am with Hernando County. I'm actually with Hernando County Utilities, the water department here in Hernando County. Frank is with Pasco County, but he's with the Pasco County Extension Office, as are most Florida friendly landscaping program coordinators, except for me and Steve in Citrus and 4 or 5 others around the state. We all work for the water company. We're also welcoming Karen today. Karen Mojica is with Mosquito Control, and she's going to just say a little bit at the end of our program in case any of you have any questions about problems you may have with mosquitoes. We just had some good rains come through, so maybe if you have standing rains or something, you might have something you want to discuss with Karen. Also, secretly joining us today in the background, as always, is Rick Fody from Hernando County Government Broadcasting, who's making this available on Hernando County Broadcasting's website. Also, as this is being recorded, another portion of Hernando County Government Broadcasting will make this presentation available on Hernando County's YouTube channel. And that link, when it's ready, will also be put on my Facebook page. So if you know people that don't do Facebook, they don't do Zoom, but they do YouTube, send them the link, email them the link or whatever, and they'll be able to watch these things as well. So I guess we're just going to get started. Landscape plants to usher in the holidays. I'm going to cover your classic landscape plants that just always make you think of the holidays. And Frank is going to think outside of the gift box, and he is going to bring us different plants that you can still work into your holidays here in Florida. You may think, oh, it's Florida, how Christmassy can it be? I was just talking with somebody yesterday. I said, I'm going to have to look up, but I'm not sure that it actually like snows in Bethlehem. So, if we want to get back to the origins of Christmas, I mean, we've got it stuck in our heads. It has to be snowing, it has to be cold out, but we're in Florida now, and we can have a lot of fun with Christmas as well. You can't see my outfit very well. I did a Christmas thing, but what you can't see are my flip-flops. So, it's the Floridian way of doing Christmas. Okay, let me move along here. It's hard to get this to move sometimes. As I said, both Frank and I, we cover Florida Friendly Landscaping. Here are the 9 principles. Everything we say and teach is going to relate back one way or another to one or more of these principles. And we were just discussing that in the past 8 months, since everything we're doing now is being recorded, we can't get away with repeating exactly the same class over and over to different groups because, it's all recorded. You all have access to it. So our imaginations and have been stretched, and we've been challenged to bring you different things, thinking outside of the box, as I just said, that still all relate to one or more of these principles. And actually, I have had a lot of fun doing it. So let's get started with the classic, the absolute classic Christmas plant. And that's what we think of when we see poinsettias. We only think of Christmas. And here in Florida, don't know if you know, we can grow it all year long in our landscapes. It seems to me, and this is just anecdotal, that the older varieties, like I used to know when I was younger, older women who had it in their yard and they were growing huge on more, it seemed to be more common then than it is now. And I don't know whether the plants have been hybridized to the point where they really just like last through the Christmas season and don't do that well in the landscape. I say that, but I have another story about that I'm going to get to, as compared to the old-fashioned ones or what it is, but they can grow in our landscape. What you're looking at here, this close-up, you're looking at the flowers. There's itsy bitsy tiny little cluster there in there. That's the flowers of the poinsettia. What we enjoy about the poinsettia are their modified leaves or bracts. And they're traditionally this dark red, but now we have them white. We have them kind of a light green. We have variegated ones. There's all kind of, I think there might even be pink ones, aren't there?
Yep.
Yes, there's all kinds.
I've seen some that are almost like fluorescent pink recently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And the University of Florida, I don't know if they're doing it this year because of COVID, but I know their students in the horticulture program would grow them. That's what that first picture was their greenhouse. And they have sales. I don't know if they're still doing, I mean, obviously they can still grow them, but whether or not they're having the sale this year, I'm not sure, but people would travel up to Gainesville just to get, their poinsettias from them.
I think I saw that they were doing some sort of remote, order ahead pickup at the curbside or
there
something.
You go. That makes sense. Yeah. Yes. Just like the restaurants too.
Yeah.
They can grow pretty easily here. You want a full sun location. They do like a bit of a moist soil. Where I have seen them growing, when I'm thinking in my mind, is usually in the Brooksville area. I'm sure Frank has seen them maybe in the Dade City area, more so than the Newport Richey or the Spring Hill, more Sand Hill type areas. But I mean, you can try them. You already bought them. Why throw them away when you can, try and plant them? The thing about pruning them so you get those colorful bracts is it's too late to do it now. You want to prune them in the A months, in April and in August, so that after you prune them in August, they have time to produce those nice colorful bracts. And where you plant them, here's the thing about poinsettias, and here's what the books tell you. You need 14 hours a day of complete darkness to set these bracts and to set these flowers and get this red color. That means they can't be under a street light or under a security light at your house, or near a window where you keep the light on all the time. We have that amount of darkness, but there can't be any artificial lights. And they are freeze sensitive, so sometimes that does become an issue up here and in Pasco, but a lot of times if they do freeze, they don't freeze before Christmas, and they come back, before Christmas rolls around again. They're relatively pest-free. Sometimes you may need to use a fungicide. Having said all that I did about the amount of darkness that these plants need, and also how I think that the older plants generally seem to do better than the ones you can buy now. Having said that, I'm going to backtrack on all of that because here's a picture I took. This is at a funeral home in Brooksville, in the city, in downtown. It's no longer there because they built a deck there. So, this bed isn't any longer there. But a friend of mine worked there. And what he would do is go, 3 weeks after Christmas. Oh, it's not an hour yet. I don't know where my voice is. He would go 3 weeks after Christmas and get all the mostly dead poinsettias that were left at the church across the street where he happened to go to church. And he would take some and plant them, and he planted some here at this funeral home. So they were already half dead, just sold, to be pretty for Christmas. And they were in downtown Brooksville. There were street lights. There's a porch light right there. I'm sure it was left on in the evenings. these poinsettias did not read the books. As you can see, they're doing just fine. So I guess the moral of the story, aside from me telling my friend who worked at that funeral home, please don't tell me what you put in that soil to make those grow that way. The moral of the story is, experiment. What do you have to lose, really? When you've got the plants anyway to be decorative for Christmas, why not experiment with them out in your yard?
Yeah.
This arrow gets moved around and it's hard to move to the next slide. All right, and here's another classic Christmas plant. If you are just, incredibly amazed each time this blooms on Christmas, I don't want to take any of the Christmas magic and joy away from you, but you do know they respond to the amount of daylight hours, right? And we always celebrate Christmas around the time of the winter solstice and the longest amount of darkness. So that is what they're responding to. Therefore, they got named by us as a Christmas cactus. It's not really a cactus. It's more like a tropical type plant. Really easy to propagate, as you know. You can take one of those little pads there, put it in some soil, and you've got one growing. I bet everyone has one that was their grandmother's, or a baby of their grandmother's plants. And they again have several different species going on out there now, and they can grow pretty big. It has, a decent amount of water requirements. So even though it's called a cactus, don't think of it as a cactus. It likes our humidity and our heat. Putting it on a Florida porch is one of its favorite places to be, unless it's going to get real cold. But most of the year, if it can be hanging from your porch and get that humidity and like the splash off of the rain, it usually is pretty happy. It likes the loose, well-drained soil, like a succulent mix. Think of it as a succulent, not quite a cactus. Wait until it's completely dry. Your grandmother probably taught you that when she gave you the piece of hers. Wait until you put your finger in and pull it out and there's no dirt, attached to it too, that it's completely dry to water it. It doesn't like direct sun. And it doesn't want to be rain just poured right on it. That's why I'm saying hanging from a carport, hanging from a screened porch or a front porch, back porch, that is really where it is happiest. Now this is hanging, despite this trick photography here. This is what's going on in the bottom is not actually holding up that huge Christmas cactus there. But again, the darkness that it needs. So if you want it to be able to produce, you don't want it to be on a porch where you keep the light on. So if you have someplace else to put it, it's going to produce a lot more. It likes the nighttime darkness. And that is what the flowers are responding to when they open up right at Christmas. And we're like, oh, it's a Christmas miracle. It still is, but it is responding to the amount of daylight hours or lack thereof. If the leaflet things there you can tell when they're droopy, that means it's too dry. If it's hard to stick your hand in one that's that huge, give it a good soaking when it looks too dry. And if the tips of those start getting red, that means it's in too much sun. So, put it in a little bit more of a shady location. That's why I say porches, carports, things like that are fantastic for these. I've seen them in offices all the time too, indoors. Up north, they have them indoors all the time. So you don't want them in a direct where the heater is blowing right on them or even the AC. But they're pretty hard not to be successful with unless you baby it. don't baby it, and it should be fine. I knew the former Hernando County Extension Director, Stacy Strickland. He's not a ornamental plant person, and he had one of these, and I promise you he ignored it, and it did fantastic in his office. Here's another one, Amaryllis. I don't know if any of you know that older song, Amarillo by Morning. I always, it's a song about a guy who's going to be in Amarillo by morning, but I always put those to this, and I always think of Amaryllis by morning. This is a beautiful, beautiful bulb plant. We're kind of limited on our bulbs here in Florida. Well, this is a bulb that's going to do fabulous. Another story is my sister has some that were my mother's, and she calls them Grandmarillis because they were grandma's plants. They are usually grown from forced bulbs in small pots. So when you get them to bloom, they may not necessarily be right at Christmas, but they are just, beautiful and unlimited really in the varieties and styles and colors that you can get in these bulbs. They are in the Amaryllis ACE family, not in the Lilly ACE family. They're not in my family, but they're still very beautiful. They look great planted in mass. I mean, you can get these in the pots, and then winter months are actually the best time to plant them. You can plant them anytime, but right now, if you get some for Christmas, after you're done with them for Christmas, you can go ahead and plant them outside. They're not going to bloom in deep shade, just like any kind of flower. But out in too much sun, the leaves are going to get yellow. So you have to, find that maybe partially sunny area. It likes a well-drained soil. I think most of us have that. So that shouldn't be an issue. Now, unlike a daylily, which you want to put like almost on top of the ground where the roots are then just in the ground, you want to plant these, the bulb neck deep, about 12 to 15 inches apart, because they are going to spread for you. You can add some compost like to the top, like top dress there, as a mulch even. And you want to keep it moist, but not waterlogged until it's established. And then after they're established, they should just come up on their own in your yard. There might come a time when you actually need to divide them. It's not a necessity though, like for some that you have to divide every year. Only if it gets too crowded in your bed and you want to share them, you can divide them then. This is the one thing that's going to compete with you for your amaryllis. This lubber grasshopper loves bulbs in general, really loves amaryllis. That's like its favorite. But if you have, if you have enough of them, I've never seen these lubbers destroy them or, eat out an entire bed. They just like to nibble on them. So just be careful of those. Once they're that big, you're not getting rid of them with any kind of chemical. As Frank knows, Jim Mull, who he works with, his saying is only the young die good. And this guy is not young anymore. You can see them in groups when they are young, and they are black with a red stripe down their back. And they're going to be hanging out in groups of them. If they're that young, some pesticide might be able to control them. What I would do, though, is I would just brush them off into a bucket of soapy water to try and control them. Once they're this big and this armored, perhaps maybe your car will kill it for you. You can step on it. I wouldn't. That's going to be gross. I've known master gardeners who cut them in half. Or you can ignore them like I do, and they just go around tasting things. They don't cause that much of an issue. You can remove the spent flower stalks before the seed pods are produced, or the flowering is going to be reduced in the next season. You can fertilize them lightly with like a 10-10-10 several times during the season. And I gave you the link there for a UF publication about Amaryllis. What you can do, the easier way of doing that is just Google Amaryllis UF for University of Florida, and their publication on it should come up to tell you how to care for them.
And that pretty much goes for anything that you see in the presentation today, or anything that you ever see in a nursery center or anything. If you're not familiar with it, you want to know, what does this take to thrive, or how big does it get, or, you know, will it take over my house, or something like that. Type in UF and the name of it, and you'll probably get, you know, a dozen pages about it.
Yep. You know, here is, I do this every year. It's so cute. This Norfolk Island pine is in the stores looking just like this, and they're adorable, aren't they? They're just so cute. But like all of us, it's only cute when it's a baby, and I'm going to get into that in a second. So the first thing I want to point out is, you know, you see Norfolk, you think Virginia. No, that's, you know, get that out of your mindset. It's actually a tropical plant, and its hardiness zone is 10A or 11. So if you're listening from South Florida or the Keys, you've got the right hardiness zone for this. We don't, and I know you see them. I see them too as I drive down Spring Hill Drive or wherever. You know, some people have microclimates, and some luck with them not freezing. And further south, you will have luck with them not freezing. But there are other issues with this. Once it's not this sweet, cute, little, adorable baby anymore, if you decide to plant it in your landscape, it's going to get 100 to 200 feet tall, and it won't take that long to do it either. And it's going to look weird. I mean, as we see this one. Now, if that's a look that you like that kind of funky look, looks like something from Edward Scissorhands' neighborhood or something going on here. I mean, maybe you like that, but take the safety safety into consideration. See how tall that one is, and there's the other one to the right side of the road compared to the rest of the neighborhood. And the thing is, they grow this fast very quickly. They grow this tall very quickly. So tell them what fast growing usually means, Frank.
Usually it's not putting a whole lot of time and energy into making that strength in the trunk that you would hope to have when something reaches 100 plus feet tall. Yeah.
Right. So you got to think about storm situations as well. And like I said, I know I've seen them in yards too, but once they start getting that big, they're not all that attractive to me anymore, and they could be a danger. Here's a picture of one, and this was probably a pretty minor storm that went through. Otherwise, the tree would be down. But you see how tall it is compared to that cabbage palm? And cabbage palms are pretty darn tall. So, and you know, then you're left with something ugly in your yard that you have to pay to get taken down because it is so huge, and that could be costly just because of how tall it is. You got to have somebody with a cherry picker. You know, you're not going to have just, you know, someone with just a truck and a chainsaw. You'll be able to get that down. And it just could be more of an issue in the future if you put it in your landscape than it's worth. Here's what I would do if you must have it, because when it's a baby, it is so cute. I'm still struggling with it this year. I'm not going to promise I'm not going to get one, but I'm not going to put it in my yard. I can promise that. If you keep it in a pot, you can slow down its growth somewhat. One day it's going to outgrow that pot and outgrow your living room or outgrow your porch or wherever you have it. And then you're stuck with, what do I do with this? Well, you don't even want to give it to your friends down south because, it's going to be a weak tree in their yard. So if you want to have it and have it for maybe a decade or so as a potted plant on your porch in your house, know that when it's time for it to move on, it's going to have to move on to the landfill, and that you're going to get another cute little one. So here's just something that I found this picture, and I thought it was cute how they did this for the holidays. But what I'm thinking, and what is probably done here, is that's not really in that pot. That they put, it's in a pot, but that they put it in this barrel and, dressed it up for the holidays. And since this barrel stays at the front door, they change out what's in there for various seasons. Nothing really wrong with that. That's what we call a pot in pot kind of method. You don't want to keep it inside a non-sunny location. It does need a lot of sun. So you've got to weigh that out too. If you don't have a spot where you can keep it in a pot where it's also going to get at least some sun, it's going to start dying out on you. Now you can keep it smaller by continually tip pruning it and keeping it in that pot size for a while. It is going to outgrow it eventually. It's going to get some dead branches and the tips, so you keep pruning those off. What you want to do, even though it's still in a pot, is the rule of trees is always that one central leader, one trunk to rule them all, so that you have a stronger tree, stronger plant. So I know how cute it is, and I said I still struggle with this. I've got I shouldn't say this, for a year now, because I didn't put it away at Christmas, a fake greenery out on my a screen porch, and it's probably moldy and full of wasps and stuff. So when I throw that away, I'm not going to promise I'm not going to get one of these Norfolk pines, but I'm not going to plant it in my yard.
I'm wondering now if anybody is able to bonsai these, or if it's just one of those that's not cooperative.
Yeah, you can look
if
that
you keep
up.
on root pruning and doing a
Right.
little bit of,
Yeah, you can research that and put it on your Facebook page to let us know.
Yeah, I'll have to come back with that.
A lot of us like to get live Christmas trees. There's a difference between live Christmas trees and living Christmas trees. Live Christmas trees are that the tree was alive and then they cut it and you put it in your living room, for a certain amount of time. That's always an issue here in Florida because the closest they're coming from is probably North Carolina. So, they've been shipped here. And so their lifespan might be shorter before they start drying out and being a problem. Also, you got to think, it's a carbon emissions thing. You're not buying locally sourced trees. So one thing I have done a couple of times, you can't do this over and over and over because you only have so much yard space. But, every little bit that we do always helps. So we've gone to this Christmas tree farm. This one happens to be in Pasco County. I'm sure Frank knows where it is. It's on 301, just into Pasco, Hernando. Yeah. And a living Christmas tree, what it is you buy it, roots and all, in a pot. And the idea is then you will plant it after Christmas. I have the tips here of how to plant the tree when it's time to plant it. But what I don't have written down, which I think is very important when it comes to buying a living Christmas tree, say you go to somewhere, you don't even have to go to a Christmas tree farm. If you have the idea of a living Christmas tree, you can go to any place that sells, evergreens and choose it. I would recommend, if you're going to do this, to get the southern red cedar because that is a native tree here. That being said, I do have an Arizona cypress that I once got, and I'll show you a picture of it at this same farm. And I'm proud of it because again, Dr. Strickland, who I mentioned, he bought one the same year, and his is dead. But but Dr. Lester tells me he gets phone calls about Arizona cypress. I think at the farm, and it must be a brand name of the tree, they're going to call it a Carolina sapphire. So watch for that on the tag. But it's actually a Arizona cypress, and they are in our Florida Friendly Landscaping books. But Dr. Lester tells me he's been getting phone calls where they're, huge and they just die. So maybe that's in my future. I don't know. The red cedars are very unlikely to have that happen because they're native. The other types of trees that the farms sell will be like a Leland Cyprus, which I know from much experience of taking phone calls that they hit that 12 to 15 year age and they just die. the Leland cypresses do. And seems like nobody buys one Leland cypress. They buy a hedgerow of them for screening or whatever. And so then they all die at the same time. So again, I'm back to recommending that Southern Red Cedar. Now, if you get it, you can look where it has lived all its life out in that field. So if you're looking for, if you've already decorated, I've only virtually decorated behind me here. That's Busch Gardens last year. If you're an early decorator, you're going to have another Christmas tree in your living room before you bring this one in, because you've only got 7, maybe 10 days of this inside. And as I said, look where it has lived its entire life, out in a field in the bright sun. If you take it immediately inside, it's going to have a reaction. So you have to acclimatize it. What I did when I got them is I brought it home and put it in the front yard for a couple of days, 2-3 days. Then I moved it onto the front porch where it was a little shadier and a little warmer. Then I brought it in, had it in the house and decorated and pretty for a week, kept it well watered. Then in reverse, put it on the back porch, and then finally out in the backyard, so I did that acclimatization forward and then in reverse, so that the tree would not be suddenly shocked into being in a different environment. And it worked for my Southern Red Cedar. It also worked for the Arizona cypress as well. But once you do that and you get to that stage where you're ready to plant it outside, these are just the rules of planting any kind of tree. Whoops. Okay. You want that hole twice as wide, but no deeper than the root ball. You're not burying the tree. You're going to look at it and be like, oh, it's a little high. But a couple inches of that root ball, or an inch or so above the soil, it'll be very happy. Frank talks about liking to build a berm around it to keep the water contained there. It's a very good idea. Don't stress it more by adding fertilizer right away. You can add compost as a top dressing, but don't put fertilizer on it. That same soil you dug out, you can put a little bit of it back in and use the rest for the berm that Frank talks about building. And that soil ball that the tree originally came in, you want to keep that open. Don't put mulch over top of it right away, because you want as much moisture to get into those roots as you can, and keep it well watered until it's established. That could mean different things for different places. When I lived in the city of Brooksville, that meant 2 weeks every day. Out here, it means 2 months, every day if you don't get rain. But both of mine are doing pretty well. The one on the left is that Arizona cypress that I'm so proud of, because Dr. Strickland's is dead, and mine looks pretty. In I'd say it's probably 8 years that it's been there. And I just took that picture yesterday, adding the beautyberry, you know, in it to add the nice color.
Yeah, I was just
Beautyberry,
admiring that. That's really nice.
the beautyberry was between me and the Arizona cypress. So I'm like, you're going to be added into this picture. And then the
Almost
southern,
got that berry shish kebab look where it's dropped a lot of the leaves going on.
Mm-hmm. And here's the southern red cedar that was once a Christmas tree of mine. It's a little goofy shaped because the top, just one little sprig started to turn brown, and you're not supposed to top a tree. So this is one of the do as I say, not as I do, but it was just one little sprig. So we kind of cut that off, and it seems to be doing just fine. But later, here's something I want to warn you about southern red cedars. These both were living Christmas trees of mine. This one wasn't, but I bought it when it was about 4 or 5 feet tall, 12 years ago, probably from the Master Gardener nursery. It's in my front yard now. So it's gorgeous, isn't it? But you need a lot of space also for a red cedar. And they're not weak like the Norfolk Island pines because they're native to the area. What I like about the southern red cedars is out here in the Royal Highlands, it hasn't happened in a while because we haven't had a real cold year in a while, but sometimes the cedars are the only green thing out here during the winter, so they really stand out. I'm very happy with this, but I'm just letting you know, see it in comparison to the neighbors' houses and the neighbor's truck. I mean, they get pretty big. And grass doesn't grow fabulously under those cedar trees either. Here's something that if you want to have something in a pot, that is not going to be a problem for you. You know, those little rosemary trees. Those are very, very cute too. And rosemary grows just fine here. So you're not going to have the problems you would maybe with the Norfolk Island pine. It's certainly not going to get that big. It's just a bush type thing. What it is not going to do is keep that shape. I mean, they created that shape for you. They kind of topiaried it. But rosemary is great to have around. It smells fabulous. I just love to rub my hands across it whenever I run into some, just to have that nice rosemary aroma on my hands. It can get pretty big. Years ago, the master gardeners at their nursery on Oliver Street in Brooksville had one that I'm positive was the size of a VW bug. I mean, it was a bush there, but it's not there anymore. But they can grow well here. They like well-drained soil. If I get one, which I always plan on it, just haven't done it yet, it's going to be by my front door, so I can have that wonderful aroma there. And here, just we have many, many hollies in Florida, and Frank's gonna cover some of them, or at least he's gonna cover one that's not really a holly and that you should not utilize in your Christmas plant collection. But hollies are fantastic to have. You do got to have girls to have those red berries. And sometimes you may not know, if you've got a female plant or not. And they come when I went to, yes, Frank?
Oh, I was going to say, this is actually a great time of year to shop for one if you want to get one of the ones that you know is going to have berries, because hopefully at the nursery, they should actually have the berries on them.
There you go. So this is the time of year to find, because they berry in the winter. I lost what I was going to say. Oh, yes, sorry. I know. That's all right. No, when I was in college and taking horticulture classes, I despised hollies simply because we had to ID them. And there's so many, so many different kinds. The only ones that I knew for sure was this one on the left, this East Palakka holly that makes a great small tree, even in an urban setting like you have here. And the reason I know those is because the leaves are so different. East Palakka holly is native-ish. It's a native hybrid, and its leaves are more like oak leaves. I mean, they're soft, unlike a lot of the hollies. And as my professor, this was a college in Ocala, so this meant more to them. They thought it was funny when he said, to help you remember the East Palakka leaves, there's no point in going to East Palakka. So that's just how I always remember that as well. But now that I don't have to, for a test, identify one holly from another, I think they're fabulous.
If anybody tuned in from East Palakka today, no offense.
No offense. Blame Professor, no, I won't say his name.
Very nice town.
Yes, it is. Actually, I've been there since then, and I was like, this is nice. Here's a traditional Christmas plant, but it's a parasite in the plant world. We do have it. We have quite a bit of it here in Florida. If you look up at the deciduous trees when all the leaves are gone and you see these round clumps of green, that's your mistletoe. And trying to get it for Christmas decorations out of your trees might be a problem. So you might just want to go, I don't know if you can get it at Michael's or some place like that. But it is, unlike Spanish moss, which is an epiphyte and not a parasite, the mistletoe literally does grow into the tree. Now, sometimes it falls down, so you can have some on the ground for you. It's found in laurel oaks, elms, hackberries, sycamores, wild cherry. It is poison, so don't eat it, and wash your hands after handling it. If you do find some on the ground, if you want to use it for a craft or something, refrigerate the fresh cut sprigs to keep them lasting longer. What I would recommend, though, if you're worried about the mistletoe in your tree, is to get an arborist to come out and check it out, because bad pruning is going to be worse for that tree than the mistletoe is. The tree has been living for years with that mistletoe in it and may or may not be a fatal issue. Bad pruning could be, much more of an issue. So if it's someone who doesn't know what they're doing, you may have created a problem where you didn't really have a problem before. I've lived here a long time, most of my life. Lived here about 42 years. So I am familiar with some of the ways that some people try to get the mistletoe out of their tree. You're laughing. Can you guess what that might entail, Frank?
I'm guessing you're not talking about the method where you just wait until one of our cold front storms blows a sprig out and lands in the parking lot.
Talking about when they're home for the holidays and the guys get together and get out the shotguns. That's not the way to get rid of your mistletoe. Please don't do that. That would be a horrible pruning job for one thing, let alone very dangerous for yourself or anybody else around. So please don't shoot the mistletoe out. You can have an arborist tell you whether he or she thinks it's causing a problem. Otherwise, I would leave it alone. I've left it alone for 42 years and have not had a tree die because of mistletoe.
Quick fun fact about mistletoe, it's actually a host plant for the purple hair streak butterfly, which I just saw for the first time in my yard recently.
Oh,
one
neat.
of the butterflies visiting my sweet almond bush. Yeah.
That's cool. See, now there's even more reason to just leave it alone up there. Okay, I think this is my portion, and next we have Frank in Sense of the Holidays.
I like it.
I didn't tell him I came up with that little title for you there. Let me stop sharing.
Sneaky little plant there in the background. I'm going to talk about that one.
Okay, great. Looks very Christmassy, doesn't it?
It looks nice, but yeah.
I will stop sharing and allow you to share.
Sounds good. So let's go ahead and I'm going to pull this up and hopefully I grab the right screen.
We did coordinate our outfits, by the way.
All right, let's try this one. So are you able to see the presentation slides?
It says, yes, now we can, yes.
All right,
Sparkleberry,
excellent.
yes.
All right. So, I was laughing this morning with the weather when I walked outside because we couldn't have timed this better. We did it last time with the fall presentation too.
Right.
Just hitting like the chilliest day out of the whole month so far. So yeah, perfect kind of weather.
Been very lucky, yes.
Definitely. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this. So here in Central Florida, we don't have snow, but I see all sorts of fun opportunities for adding seasonal color. So you got all these plants that Lilly talked about, and then I'm going to dive into a whole different segment of them, some of the outside the box ones, not necessarily your traditional holiday plants, but things that I feel really can add a little seasonal flair to your landscape. Plus, some of them also have some cool wildlife value and things like that too. So walking through natural areas here in Central Florida, there's actually a lot of seasonal cues that I like to pick up on and take for a little bit of inspiration. So you've got things like partridge berry and wild coffee and hollies. They're all vying for attention of hungry migratory birds, and they've got these shiny red berries contrasting against evergreen leaves. Just a lot of nice inspiration going on there. And then you've got the sparkly sparkleberry flowers hanging like little white bells and things like that. So I like to take some cues from this when I'm thinking about holiday color in the landscape, and then also, work with what's available in my area. I'm not going to necessarily be able to find partridge berry in a nursery setting very easily, but there's a lot of fun stuff that you can do, kind of taking some of these ideas, getting a little creative. Always, of course, sticking with the idea of right plant, right place, working with what you've got in your own landscape conditions. Okay, so maybe I like to have a lot of fun with holiday seasonal flair in the landscape. This is my Staghorn Fern, which transforms into a reindeer fern.
There you go. Right, it's already got the antlers and everything.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so rather than going plant by plant, I was inspired to try something a little bit different with this, and I put together a few examples of plant combos that kind of have a common theme. So maybe they work together for specific site conditions or landscape goals, and so I've combined them onto a slide or two like that, and then I'm going to highlight just a couple of the plants in a little bit more detail. If any of the plants really catch your eye, I would encourage you to jot down a quick note, and that way if it's not one of the ones I picked to cover in more detail, you can ask us about it at the end of the program or do a little bit of looking it up like we're mentioned. Type in UF, type in the name, see what comes up. Also, at the very end of the presentation, I'm going to share a couple of holiday recipes that I like a little bit from my own garden if I've got time. So yeah, this first combo, it's understory plants that like a little bit of dappled sun, dappled shade. If you've got some morning sun, kind of got that understory forest canopy thing. Plants like marlberry, poinsettia, wild coffee, they can work really nicely together, bring a little bit of seasonal interest into those shadier corners. So especially when you pair it with something like that poinsettia for a little extra pop, you can get some really nice things going on.
Wild coffee is one of my favorite Latin names.
Definitely. So you've got
Lycosa Nervosa.
Right. So Psychotria nervosa. We've actually got a couple of species of wild coffee that grow here in Florida. And it's one of the plants that I did pick to highlight just because it's so great in so many ways. They've got these glossy, almost gardenia looking leaves that bring sort of a tropical feel. But at the same time, they've got these bright red berries that can give you a little bit of seasonal color. They have white flowers in little clusters in the springtime. Just all around a really nice plant, fairly easygoing. It can take a pretty decent range of conditions from pretty good amounts of sun to reasonable amounts of shade. Despite the name, it's not going to substitute for your morning cup of coffee, but it does have that really nice tropical festive feel, and you can almost hear the songbirds coming around for those berries. So love the way that this one can bring a little bit of something to the landscape all through the year. Another one that I had in that first slide there was rouge plant, and this one isn't nearly as well known or widely planted as wild coffee, but I wish it was, because it's got this really nice little brightness that it can add to a shady corner. It actually blooms and has these berries pretty much throughout the year, but especially when you combine it with some of the other seasonal color, it really adds something nice. What the flowers and berries lack in size on this one, they kind of make up for just in sheer abundance. So it's a neat little understory plant, kind of gives you that informal woodland look. Yeah, it's a nice little effect. So next area I was going to highlight, right around the corner from there, I've got a little bit more full sun going on, a little bit drier conditions. And, you know, right here you've got some really nice effects going on with the tiny evergreen leaves of Simpson's stopper. Just out of scene on this photo is weeping Yopon holly, which is one of my favorite of the hollies that grows around this part of Florida. Got very small leaves, none of the sharp points or anything, and these weeping, drooping branches that kind of look like something out of Dr. Seuss. But the contrast,
it really does, yes.
Yeah. The contrast of the berries and the dark green leaves on these looks really nice, and you know, especially when you combine it with some of the scrub blueberry with that lighter bluish foliage with the pinkish purple tips. You know, it's got almost a winter landscape kind of feel if you use a little bit of imagination. Then tucking in a little bit of that sweet alyssum up towards the front. You know, if you squint your eyes and you light it up at night, you can almost imagine it as a little snowy wintry scene. Got a little bit of pine straw mulch scattered around in there to really help add that effect and everything. Yeah, a lot of nice
the aroma.
Definitely, yeah. Now, quick tip when I'm talking about things like Simpson's stopper, pruning matters. And what I mean by that is Simpson's stopper is one of a number of plants that actually tends to bloom on the very tips of new growth in the springtime. And so when you've got plants like that, you need to be careful about how and when you prune. So often I see Simpson's stopper used as a hedge around parking lots and things like that, and you'll hardly find a berry on them. And the reason is if you prune them too hard and at the wrong time, you might be missing out on a lot of the seasonal benefit and the wildlife benefit that you could get out of a plant like this. So thinking about your timing can make a big difference. Same thing goes for like if you wanted to add some of the cool blues and whites of plumbago. Timing your pruning right and making sure you're not just trying to hedge the living daylights out of this thing. Let it get more of its natural mounding, spreading sort of form, and you're going to be rewarded with just this really nice effect of almost, you know, snowballs and icy blues, and it can give a nice impact, especially combined with some of that other stuff. Now, going back to the scene, one other plant that I really wanted to highlight here was that sweet alyssum. So right down there at the bottom. And the reason I love sweet alyssum as a winter annual, it's got these nice little mounds of white flowers. They can look real festive, almost give like that little snowy mound kind of look, especially amongst other seasonal decorations and things like that. Plus, I've noticed that it's one of the best plants for wintertime gardens for attracting hoverflies, which are beneficial. The larvae actually do a great job of controlling aphids and other pests like that. So by planting this, you know, you can get some of the wildlife benefit and some of that seasonal color going on. So I plant it up front. I also plant some of it tucked in nearby around my veggies. And speaking of veggies, winter is a really great time for edible gardening here in Central Florida. So our winter crops are actually some of the best looking, in my opinion, some of the most colorful and interesting. So if you're wanting to try your hand at edible gardening, mixing some of this stuff in within the landscape, Especially some of these that have that bluish sort of foliage when they're kissed with the dew in the morning. It's just a really nice effect. So get some of this, get some of that sweet alyssum, tuck it in around your garden. You can be off to a really good start. This is the time of year to do it. And then you can be eating really well through the winter months too. Now, as I was thinking about the holiday theme and putting all this together, I was actually thinking a little bit about how much the holiday season is also about welcoming guests into our home and having visitors and big meals and things like that. And this year, all that's a little bit topsy-turvy. While we might not be able to spend as much time with family and friends this year, it doesn't mean you can't have guests over. And I think, Lily, you've actually got a program coming up next week all about creating a winter oasis in your yard.
I
So this is
do.
kind of
Yes.
a little teaser for that. But, I was thinking about in my backyard, I've got just about every combo: wet, dry, shady, sunny, and a nice tall fence so I can kind of let things get a little more wild and messy. And not only can I get a little bit of seasonal color going on in the yard like that, but I'm also able to welcome in all sorts of pollinators and migratory birds and things like that by incorporating the right plants in there. So I really take advantage of the fact that I've got that nice fence and all these different site conditions and get all sorts of accents of, the reds and whites and blues and different things going on. And just the endless visitors that I can see by looking out the window is a really nice thing to have around the holidays. So, going to highlight just a couple of these. You've got tropical salvia, which basically blooms year-round. If it starts to get a little tired after the summer season, chop it back. There's plenty of seasons coming in. Fire spike, coral honeysuckle. Reason I'm highlighting these ones is not only the red color, red berries and flowers that you can get. As a bonus, a lot of these red tube-shaped flowers that you can plant, you can actually get some really special visitors in Central Florida, which is hummingbirds. They've got their own little seasonal color going on with the red and green and things like that. But yeah, by planting some of these, you can have your red berries coming in from the coral honeysuckle. The fire spike really starts to kick off its blooming season in the winter. And our main hummingbird season is mostly springtime into summer, but there are some that are still around or passing through. I actually just saw a hummingbird visit my fire spike just a day or two ago. So, you get the bonus of all these berries from firebush and honeysuckle, inviting the birds in. You've got all your food laid out for whoever shows up at the table. So,
you're most likely going to see that ruby-throated. That's the most common that we have here.
Yeah, definitely. So one more that I wanted to highlight from that slide about all these pollinator plants is the climbing aster. And if you tuned in during the fall, you probably remember that I talked about this one because it kind of brings up the tail end of the fall blooming season. It's not traditionally thought of as a holiday plant or even a holiday color in terms of the purple blooms, but the flowering really peaks around November and December. And the flowers, when the sun is hitting them and you've got a bush just covered in these, they give off this aroma of like a warm tray of sugar cookies crossed with sweet almond bush. And so, like, to me, that gives it an honorary place in the holiday plant segment here. It blooms almost until the new year. It's really getting into its peak, and it will bring in every pollinator in your neighborhood because it's one of the best and last of the winter nectar and pollen sources, and it's really good one. So if you've got a little bit of a wetter area and you've got a little bit of room to let it sprawl, or you can train it up a trellis or something like that, I highly encourage adding this one to your holiday seasonal decor. It's one of the ones that I anticipate most out of the entire year, seeing those little buds form.
You've sold me, Frank. Just last Saturday, I bought 3 pots of this from my friend who has a little hobby native nursery. I'm like, I've got to have these climbing aster now because Frank has sold me on them. So.
Yay. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I see them along the roadsides. I've got one blooming in my backyard right down near a downspout. And yeah, I wish it was planted more. So maybe I'll change it one presentation at a time. Awesome. And a little tip, it actually starts pretty easily from cuttings. I've had cuttings of just about any length, root even in just a glass of water. So now that you've got it, it needs to be pruned a little bit to keep it in check throughout the year, and you can share with friends. So, there you go. All right, now maybe you really don't have room to add something like climbing aster or some of these plants to your landscape. Maybe you're already pretty full. Uh, that's okay. Like I kind of hinted at before, you can get creative with some googly eyes and a red nose. Just about anything can become pretty festive. Did you actually know
This
they
is
make?
also a great idea for part-time residents. I had that talk week before last, that, I was discouraging vines or things that will be too much, that grow too much while they're gone. But this is great ideas for them as well.
Definitely. The one on the left, actually, a local nursery here sells them each year around the holidays, and apparently the grower has actually patented that philodendron specifically because it's got that perfect shape. But yeah, you can get creative. Likewise, maybe you want to help feed some of the winter migratory birds, but you can't fit a fruiting shrub or tree into your landscape. A simple pine cone bird feeder can look pretty festive and help to feed some of those residents that are living in the neighborhood or just passing through. Or maybe you can just get some entertainment out of an acrobatic squirrel trying to grab hold of things, do its thing. But there is a little do-it-yourself bird feeder design of how to make your own suet and things like that on the gardening solutions page, so you can check that out. But yeah, there's all sorts of fun ways that you can get creative. And oh no. So I knew that was going to happen. Come on. So I wanted to make a quick mention of a couple of invaders, interrupt the program to bring you a special message, because some of these have been spotted disguising themselves as holiday plants here in Central
They
Florida,
have.
and you should not fall for their tricks.
I was
All right.
thinking that when you were showing the wild coffee. There you go. That's what people are going to get it confused with. Yep.
So yes, I absolutely want to make sure that you do not make the mistake of welcoming one of these invaders into your home for the holidays. This one is called Coral Artesia. It's incredibly invasive. In fact, this one was originally brought to Florida as an ornamental, and you can see why.
Pretty.
But it is one of the few plants that is so invasive and so detrimental to our natural ecosystems and costly that it's actually classified by the state of Florida not just as invasive, but as a noxious weed, meaning that it's literally illegal to transport or sell this. You can't dig it up and move it. If you get caught, it's actually one of the few plants that you can get caught and fined for. So aside from the drooping clusters of berries that are bright red and kind of give it this nice festive look, one of the key features that you would look for to differentiate it from natives like wild coffee would be the scalloped leaf margins. So you can see that they've got that distinct edge to them. And I did put a side-by-side here so you can compare it against wild coffee. You can see the leaves of Coral Artesia are a little bit thicker, waxier. They're less quilted looking, kind of more of a smooth leaf rather than that pillowy quilted look of wild coffee. So once you recognize them and you know those key features, really easy to tell the difference. It's not actually too difficult to yank these up. So I would encourage you, yank them up. Every berry that hits the ground will pretty much sprout and make a new plant. So try to get all the berries out. Don't leave any behind. Usually where there's one large plant, you'll see a ton of seedlings once you start to look around. So don't fall for Coral Artesia. Bad news. Another sneaky invader that escaped cultivation and is now causing obscene amounts of ecological and economic harm here in Florida is Brazilian pepper tree. So For anybody who's not familiar with this plant, it's got drooping clusters of berries that ripen up right around this time of year. And it's so abundant and so noticeable this time of year that you'll even sometimes hear it mistakenly called Florida holly. It is definitely not a holly, totally different plant family, and it's definitely not from Florida. It doesn't belong here. And, before you think about going and cutting some of those branches and clusters and making yourself a nice wreath or something, the sap can actually cause allergic reactions in a lot of folks, similar to poison ivy. So bad news. You don't want to deck the halls with this. You want to get rid of it if you see it, and do not welcome it anywhere near your landscape. So a couple key features that you would look for: they have compound leaves, which basically means that every leaf comes off of a branch and then divides into leaflets. And then in between those leaflets, you often have a winged midrib, and then you've got those drooping clusters of berries there. So if you compare that to something like the Dahoon holly or the East Palakka holly, things like that, hollies are going to have their leaves attached directly to each of the branches. So they've got simple leaves as opposed to compound, and then the veins are much, much less noticeable. So if you compare the two side by side, really distinctive differences once you get to recognize them. So Brazilian pepper tree, not a Florida holly, not something you want to decorate. And now for something completely different. I know we're running a little over on time, but
That's all right.
I wanted to quickly give you guys a couple of favorite holiday recipes, because back in the fall program, if you caught that one, I mentioned that one of my favorite things to grow in the fall is sorrel or roselle. It's known as sorrel in the Caribbean. It's in the hibiscus family, same family as okra and things like that. And I grow it because it makes some really great traditional holiday foods and drinks. So in the Caribbean, it's made into a traditional holiday punch, and you can spice it up with a little bit of orange peel, cloves, and warm spices like that. It's a nice, sweet sort of drink, really fun and festive, and bright, bright red. And then you can also use it to make a cranberry sauce. So I'm not going to do a Julia Child cooking demonstration here for you.
Maybe that can be your next program.
Right?
Yeah.
We've actually been talking about it. I might do something at our demo kitchen.
Yeah.
But what I'll do is anybody who would like a copy of this, I can go ahead and send it out. I'll probably post it up on our website soon. And that way you can have it. You don't have to try to frantically write it all down. So make sure we've got your email, or shoot us an email at the end of the program, and I'll get this out to you. It makes a very delicious cranberry sauce, or drizzle for using on top of desserts and things like that. It's, in my opinion, even a little bit tastier than cranberry sauce because it doesn't have quite that same bitter edge to it. So yeah, this is one. It even sometimes is called Florida cranberry because it can be used so interchangeably. Really great plant, easy to grow. And
I also have a sorrel, but I just put it in, and it's about only that big. So maybe in a year or two. But when I look at it, I think of you too. So
nice. Well, it is going to be cold sensitive, so you're going to want to make sure you give it protection. They are another one of those short day plants, so these ones will start to flower in response to the shorter days. So usually they start to flower for me right around October, and they'll continue going pretty much up until either a storm knocks them down or till the weather gets too cold. In springtime, because we do get that same photo period again, if you've got it going through spring, you may get a little bit of blooming in that 12 and 12 kind of daylight period.
Yeah.
And then the main one that it really seems to peak is the fall one. So, yeah, definitely a great plant. And with that, I want to just go ahead and kick it over for questions. If anybody's still on the line and got questions from our program.
That we have in the chat.
Okay.
Oh no, there is someone from Marion County. I have 4 poinsettias in pots from 4 previous years doing wonderful. I bring them in when the temps are below 40. I got one of the new ones at Lowe's, which is a bright pink and has 3 groups of small pink leaves. They are new and it was gorgeous. However, all the leaves are falling off by one in groups. I've never experienced this with poinsettias. Yeah, because they are expensive and beautiful, but she hasn't found them to be stable. Do you know much about the potted poinsettias, Frank? I don't know a whole lot other than that I personally haven't had much luck, with potted poinsettias, I'd say in probably 10 years.
Well, if this was somebody who didn't already have some experience keeping potted poinsettias alive, the other ones that you have are also grown in pots. Yes. If you didn't have that experience, I would say maybe that it was a drainage issue, that sometimes when you get them, they're in that foil,
Right.
and that's holding too much moisture in. You wind up overwatering, things like that.
The falling leaves does sound like overwatering. Yeah.
That would typically be one of my concerns. Since you've got that experience with keeping them alive, you're not overwatering them and things like that. It could be that some of that is delayed reaction to they were a little bit overwatered at the store or something like that. I'm not real sure. I don't have a great explanation. I would say maybe pop it out of the pot, just take a look at the roots, just to see what's going on in there. See if maybe you've got a little bit of root rot going on or anything like that. Sometimes if it's got really, really dense leaves, sometimes I'll notice that that'll tend to hold in a little bit of fungus, especially if they're getting top watered at the store and things like that. So I'm not sure.
It could be any number of things, especially with potted plants too. But yeah, the leaf fall does sound like, and you're right, if they didn't remove that foil, which some people don't know too, it holds the water in. But if she had several of them, I'm sure she figured that out too. But you want to avoid, if you have them inside, you will want to avoid drafts from your air conditioning, just various things as that. The next one, this person, Joyce, thinks that the hoverfly looked like a bee. And she wants to know if that's a common misconception and are they dangerous in any way?
It is a common misconception. Photos of hoverflies are commonly mislabeled as bees. They are generally thought of as bee and wasp mimics. So a lot of them will have very similar coloration and patterns to some of the local bees and wasps in their area. Actually one of the things that I do when I post pictures is use hashtag not a bee, just to kind of give a little bit of an extra heads up that these are out there. They are doing good stuff, nothing to worry about. If you're wondering about the potential danger, only if you're an aphid and you've got a larval hoverfly coming straight for you. Otherwise, they don't sting, even though they look like they might. They don't bite or anything, not like horseflies or anything like that. So, nope, they are absolutely awesome to have in the garden. I love seeing them around, and I love finding plants that really seem to do an exceptional job of attracting them. So the Alyssum that I mentioned, I noticed that hollies, when they do bloom in the early springtime and they've got those tiny little white flowers with a lot of nectar, that seems to be one of the things that hoverflies love, is tiny little flowers with a bunch of nectar to offer. So I've seen them hanging around my tropical salvia. I've seen them attracted to things like fleabane, a number of other small flowered plants. So yeah, the more you can get in your garden, the better.
What I have done, because people have given their emails here, and I should have mentioned earlier, we may not see this chat again. So what I've done is I've put my email. Oh, it should be to everyone. Only to Leslie. Let me see. Put it to everyone. And if Frank can put your email. So if you can email us directly, I can give you a PDF of my portion. And I'm sure Frank can do the same thing. I am Lilly B, Lillyb, as in bee, not hoverfly, the letter B, at hernandocounty.us. And Frank is right there at Galdo at ufl.edu. Email us or email just one of us and we'll get you the PDFs to this presentation as well. Unfortunately, this chat kind of disappears, and if you put your email address here, it is better that you contact us directly on our emails so we know, that you want us to send that information as well.
I've got a Pasco County FL.net email address as well. So if anybody's already got that one in their files, you can use that too. My email address didn't change. It's just I figure ufl.edu is a lot less of a mouthful for somebody to try to.
Pasco County. Whatever. Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned here, we mentioned it being recorded. Yes, this is being recorded, and there are several avenues with which you'll be able to find it again. What might be easiest for you from New York is give it a few days and go to Hernando County YouTube. Go to YouTube and go to the Hernando County government channel, and it should be on there. And a lot of my other classes are on there as well. Or you can go to my Facebook page, which is Hernando FFL program, and I will have the links to this recording, to the YouTube recording, and various ways to access it as well. Okay, yes, I'm saying if everyone who put their email on here, we may not be able to see that email and access it. I'll try, but I can't promise it. So it's best that after this ends that you email Frank or I. You don't have to, you can do us both, but we can also send it to each other, who it belongs to as well. Let me let Karen, if she's still around there. Yes, she is. Karen, if you can just let us know your email and your phone number for mosquito control. If you're having any mosquito issues, to please contact Karen. If you're in Hernando County, I mean, she can't help you if you're in Miami-Dade or something, but she might be able to direct you to their mosquito control there.
Okay. All right.
Okay, did it show up there? Yes, there she is. K Mojica at hernandocounty.us. We both have Dr. Lester thinks our emails are burdensome. They're so long, but we don't get the ufl.edu ones.
Yeah. Pasco County FL.net is a little.
Phone number?
Yeah. If you, because of Ada, you're having more mosquito issues than normal, go ahead and call Karen, but I know we're running a little over, so.
And I can just do a quick reminder if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, I'll be really quick. Just a reminder that even though the weather is getting colder here, a lot of our container breeding will continue. So if you have containers in your yard, make sure you dump them after all the rain falls. We did have that storm, so you may have some buckets in the yard that are still holding some water. Just make sure you dump and drain those, as well as bird baths and anything that could still be holding water from the storm we had last week. That seems to be the majority of what we're getting right now as far as our mosquito issues. But anytime you have one, please give us a call or send us an email. We'll send our technicians out there to take a look at the situation, find where they're coming from, and definitely correct it for you. We're here all year round, even in the winter months. They're not as bad, but they're still here. They don't tend to leave us. So please give us a call if you're experiencing anything. There is no charge. This is for safety for mosquitoes. They do carry diseases that we like to eliminate before a problem can start. So if your yard, your home, your street, just give us a call. give us your address. Like I said, there is no charge. We'll send our technicians out there and they will locate where they're coming, where they're breeding so that we can take care of that for you.
They're a very nice department. They're all very friendly. And mosquitoes do not pass COVID, just so you're aware of that.
No, thank goodness.
Not at all. Yes. All right. Well, thank you very much, Karen. I'm sorry we were running a little bit of overtime here. Thank you very much, Frank. That was very interesting. When I was looking down, I was taking notes, stealing for my presentation next week, which will be Wednesday at 10 on inviting pollinators to your winter garden. So thank you also, Rick, at Hernando County Government Broadcasting. This is going to be available on Hernando County Government Broadcasting's their webpage. Also, John from Hernando County Government Broadcasting is going to make this available on YouTube to our broader audience there. So thank you everyone very much. And like I said, email Frank or I, and I will try to grab your emails from this chat as well to get you what you need. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day and Merry Christmas.